What's up YouTube, Dow here from Eff Mon, bringing you an update to my Drytron deck. Now with the Drytron deck, I've actually had an incredible amount of fun of it. It's got it's one of the decks that has the most potential, or the most potential from Genesis Impact. And this is going to be a little bit more than just a profile. I'm actually going to take you through different engines that you can play within the deck that give it a different aspect, and I'll explain each one of them as we go. I'll also explain each card as we go of its actual purpose in the deck. So this is more like a deck builder's guide along with my personal profile, and then you can use the knowledge that I bring to you in this video to adapt your personal build or look into ways that you want to adapt it as well. I'll also talk about some budget options for any cards that are a little bit too expensive or more expensive than normal, and kind of go from there. So without that way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more Yu-Gi-Oh content coming up over the Christmas period and thereafter. We do have loads more coming for you. You've got like updates to ABCs, Paleo Toads. We've also got updates or a brand new Gizmet build. We've got updates to Dark Magician. The list goes on and on and on. So if you smash this video, gets at least 50 likes, I will bring you a test stand video for this deck as well to show you exactly what it can do past the standard combo as well. With that out of the way, let's get into today's profile of Drytrons. Now, Drytrons are a brand new machine-based ritual deck, but not just that, they actually allow you to instigate any ritual monster in the entire game by using the Drytron ritual spell to summon using the attack rather than levels, meaning the harder to get out ritual monsters that you've been playing with for a long time are actually near enough as easy as they'll ever be to get out. So we start with the Drytron rituals. Now we only play one of each Drytron purely because they are boss monsters, they are high levels, they are high attacks, that playing any more can lead to a break. Now if you were going to do anything, the only one that I would say is I would probably drop the Quadratis and bump up the Draconoids to 2. This is your more aggressive boss monster for technically this current format. This is a bit better against back row control. Now, both of them share the same effect that if they are ritual summoned using two level 1 monsters, which is very easy because they use the attacks instead of levels, they will gain an additional effect. Now, the Quadrantis will gain this effect, so your opponent cannot target this card with spell and trap card effects outright. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. So if the total levels of monsters used for this card's ritual summon were 2 or less, you destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls. If this ritual summon card is destroyed, you can special summon Drytron monsters from your graveyard, except himself, with combined attack that equals exactly 4,000. So this one deals with back row, and as you can imagine, Draconoids will deal with the front row. So if it is summoned using monsters that are levels of 2 or less, then it gains this additional effect. It can attack all special monsters your opponent controls once each. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can banish one During your opponent's turn, you can banish monsters from your graveyard whose combined attack equal exactly 2,000 or 4,000, then target one face-up card on your opponent controls for every 2,000 attack of the total that you've banished. So you can send those cards to the grave. So it does target, but it's non-destruction, so it sends, which is really, really nice. And the best thing is you can actually out Dragoons if you have Necros of Unicorn or the Amorphactor Pain on board, because they negate all fusion monster effects, which means it can then be targeted and it can then just be sent. So the idea is that the lower level Drytrons are 2,000 attacks. You banish 2 of them, you get a pop, you get 2 pops. You banish this guy, you get a pop. You get 2 pops, and then if you only banish one of them, which is only going to be 2,000 attack, you'll get 1 pop or 1 send. Then for the other ritual monsters, in my opinion, are staple, are triple, Cyber Angel, Ben 10. Now the reason this is so good is the lower level Drytrons tribute off either a ritual monster or another Drytron to gain effect. So by tributing Ben 10, you then get to add a light fairy, which can either be a Manju for your normal summon, another copy of itself, or Natasha if you want to as well. Or if you play the Herald of Ultimateness, you can also search that out on a consistent basis. Then the cards I'm personally playing in here, I've got the one Cyber Angel Natasha and the one Saravis, the Ancient. Now the reason is behind these is you're probably going to summon this more, but this is also a really nice protection card. You've got to keep in mind that the Drytrons can actually ritual from grave as well. So even discarding this to protect your cards from targeting is always going to give you that added bonus. Now the last card that I would put into this deck, so it's currently a 39 card deck, and the last one that I currently would look at for you guys to kind of consider are one of these 3 cards here. Now these 3 cards are either going to be the Necros of Unicorn, the Amorphactor Pain, or the Vanity's Ruler. Now, each of these share both very positive and slightly negative reasons as to why you may or may not add them into the deck. So Necros of Unicorn. The bonus that Necros of Unicorn has over the rest is it negates all monsters from the extra deck, which means your opponent's linked monsters cannot be activating their effects. Now, that's the one thing it has on top of a Morphactor Pain. But the only reason you would play this is if you were worried about something like a Unicorn or a Cerberus, and even if you are, your opponent still needs to extend to get them on the board. The Morphactor Pain is good in the sense that what it does is it negates Fusion, Synchros, and XYZs while they're on the field, and it can also make your opponent skip their whole main phase 1. So the difference between these two is you're literally right for an additional 650 attack and the ability to skip my opponent's main phase. I'm sacrificing the ability that if my opponent has a Nightmare Cerberus, he's going to be able to deal with this, or a Nightmare Unicorn is going to be able to deal with this. Now, it's still very, very good and powerful in that census, so which is why you choose between the two of those. Now, then you get to Vanity's Ruler. Vanity's Ruler is out and out, in my opinion, better than the other two, purely because it stops your opponent's special summoning. So if they do not open up an Imperm, if they do not open up a Dark Ruler no more, and if they do not open up something that will negate Vanity's Ruler's effects, they are not going to be able to get into the extra deck to even become a threat. So they would need to be able to try and get a monster on board that is stronger than 2500, and the fact that Vanity's Rulers can continue to allow you to summon. Now, all of these cards are searchable. This one specifically through Ben 10. This one, Necros Unicorn and the Draco Overlord, is specifically through either Necros Unicorn can come out of Preparation of Rites, but this can also come off of any of the Drytron alphas that searches you out the ritual monster. So again, it's really down to your personal preference of what you like to play. At current, I've been using the Overlords because making my opponent skip their main phase 1 is quite damaging. Now, even if my opponent does Imperm this, they still skip their main phase 1, which again is why it has a little bit of the edge over the Unicorn. They would have to Imperm this very early during my turn, not during their turn. So between the three, I would probably be leaning more towards the Vanity's Ruler. The only massive downside for the Vanity's Ruler is it does require your normal summon. So if you are looking to play Manju, or in this particular build, Alistair the Invoker, then that's where you're probably going to go sacrifice your Invoked monster to search out your invocation, if of course you don't open it, for a Vanity's Ruler. Now, the idea of what you want to end your board with in this particular deck is you want to be able to end your board with a defensive ritual monster in the form of Natasha, Draco Overlord, Unicorn, or even Vanity's Ruler, and then an aggressive ritual monster, or of course an aggressive fusion monster. So again, in doing so, even though you lose your normal summon on this, these two will negate your Alistair, your Macabre, your Purgatrio. So there's a lot of give and take, which means you have to think about what you're putting in the deck and why you're putting it in there. I personally think Vanity's Ruler takes the pip of all of them. It just really does depend on if you want to lose your normal summon or not. So that's why you've got a lot of thinking to do when putting these cards in here. So that's it for the ritual monsters. Moving on to the main deck effect monsters. I will take you through the other options that we have as well when we get to the final engine on top of that. So for the effect monsters, of course, we've got triple Drytron Alpha Thurbin. This is the one that if it is special summoned for its own effect, it will allow you to search a ritual monster. So all of the effect Drytron main deck monsters that aren't rituals cannot be normal summoned or set, and they must be special summoned with the effect of a Drytron card. You can treat one other Drytron monster or ritual monster from the hand or field to special summon this card from the hand or graveyard in defense position. Then this is where the effects become specific. So Drytron Alpha Thurbin actually says you can add one ritual monster from your deck to your hand. You cannot special summon monsters. This is very important. You cannot special summon monsters except monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set the turn you activate these effects. Now, a lot of people get confused on this. A lot of people go, oh, well, that means you can't summon Vanity's Ruler, you can't summon Manju, you can't summon Alistair because they can be normal summoned or set. Wrong. As long as you are not special summoning them, you can still normal summon them. The reason this deck is so good is the sense that all of your monsters coming out of the extra deck technically can't be normal summoned or set. So you're allowed to keep summoning from the extra deck. Another thing you could put in a deck if you really wanted to would be Extravagance. But if you would put Extravagance in there, I would take out the Alistair engine. And again, I'll talk through the other engines that we go through as we get through the profile. You've then got triple Zeta. Now Zeta does the exact same thing as Alpha, instead it adds you a ritual spell, which is again why we play them at 3. And then you've got double Gamma. Gamma is when it is special summoned using its own effect again, you get to bring back a Drytron monster. So the idea is you're just going to get 4,000 attack on board, which is going to be able to be used as ritual material later on. So it's the reason we play Gamma at 2. The other two are part of the 2-card combo, very important. There are ways of searching these. They all can't be normal summon a set, and that's why it's very important. Then we move into triple Alistair, the Invoker, and 1 Manju. Now, the reason we've got 1 Manju is because it clashes with Alistair, the Invoker, which is, again, another issue with the Vanity's Ruler, but it depends on the route you're going for. Now, the whole route of this build is to balance between being aggressive and being defensive. Now, the way I see it is one of the best decks right now is going to be Virtual World, so they're going to lock me out after VFD. So I need a way of getting out of the VFD lock during my turn, and I'd rather do that playing something like Forbidden Droplets or Dark Ruler No More than I would trying to play 101 hand traps. Defensively, again, the idea is that either you go through the Manju play to give you that additional ritual monster, or you're going to go through the Alistair play, which is going to give you that fusion monster of either Kaliga or, of course, Alistair the Invoker, Macabre. So again, you're going for your double defensive route or your double offensive route as well. So an area that you could take out, if you wanted to take out the Alistair Invoker and less so the Manju, but you wanted to take out the Alistair engine, one engine that I would advise you guys to be playing is, of course, the Gamma package. Now, the reason I would advise you to play this, and another tech that I kind of thought of as well, is the only generic level 8 Synchro Machine monster is an Ally of Justice. It's like £2 online. If you want to play it, it's worth picking it up. It's 2600 attack. And again, because it's machine, you use it as basically tribute fodder. So it's Ally of Justice, Light Gazer, and I'll put it up on the screen for you guys now so you can see it. Now, the reason you would do this is because you do play a lot of spells that you actually activate without having monsters on board. So you've got, which I'll go through them in a minute, like Drytron Nova, you've got Forbidden Droplet if you wanted to put that in as well. So the idea is you could go into Omega and rip one from your opponent's hand, but what would be better is by using your Gamma and 1 monster from the hand, you're putting a machine monster on board, which actually gives you attack fodder for your ritual summons off of the back of Gamma. Now, of course, you could go into Savage or try and go into an Omni Negate if you're worried about something like a Nibiru, but again, you have to play and adapt the deck the way you want to play it in order to do so. So Gamma is an alternative engine to the Alistair the Invoker engine, or can be played alongside Alistair the Invoker, just to give you another option. And of course, Omega would go straight into your extra deck space. So speaking of the spells that we run that you pretty much want to protect with Gamma, we do play triple Drytron Nova. So you basically get to special on 1 Drytron monster from your deck, but destroy it during the end phase. Only activate 1 Nova per turn, and you can't special summon monsters, except monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set the turn you activate this card. So again, this is just another way of getting a Drytron to the board. So this allows you to pretty much, from the 2-card combo of Alpha and Zeta, it gives you another copy of those, because the idea is that you would, as long as you open up one of them, and ideally you want to open up Alpha, you Nova out Zeta, tribute off Zeta for Alpha. Alpha gets you Ben 10, you tribute off Ben 10 to bring back Zeta, and then off you go, you've got your 2-card combo complete. Other cards we can activate without having monsters on the field are double Drytron Fafnir. This searches you out any Drytron spells. This gets you your Drytron Nova, or if you already have Nova in hand, it gets you the Drytron Ritual spell. Also, a very important thing, specifically against Virtual Worlds right now, is once per turn, if a monster is normal or special summoned face up while you control a Drytron monster, except during a damage step, you can reduce that monster's level by 1 per 1,000 of its current attack, minimum level 1 for the rest of this turn. So again, if they're planning to Synchro or XYZ, if you're reducing their levels even by 1, it completely distorts their ability to Synchro or to XYZ, because they go to XYZ level rank 6s and 9s, and they Synchro into 6s and 9s. So by knocking their tuner down by 1, or knocking their tuner down by 2, depending if they're bringing out the level 6s or the level 3s, they're not going to be able to use them as fodder. So a very important card. Your opponent can also not negate your ritual spell cards, which is again very important. The other one that we play is double Magical Meltdown, and because we're playing 2 lots of field spells, we do play the 1 Terraforming. So obviously Meltdown is your route into the Alistair engine. If you're not playing the Alistair engine, you do change it up. We've then got triple Cyber Emergency, and again, all these cards do searching or summoning, so they are massive ash bait, which is why Gamma can be very important. So Cyber Emergency, you add 1 light machine monster that cannot be normal summoned or set. So this gets you your Alpha, your Zeta, your Gamma, and both of your ritual monsters should you have already opened up the combo. The rest of the effect is a little bit irrelevant, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But ultimately, if the activation gets negated, you can discard a card and add it back to your hand. And you can only activate one Cyber Emergency once per turn. So if the activation gets negated, you can activate it again. Then, of course, another card we activate is Preparation of Rites. So you add a level 7 or lower ritual monster. Ideally, your target is going to be Ben 10. If you already have Ben 10, you can then go for Saravas for protection. You can then also go for Natasha for battle protection. Or if you put it in as well, you can go for your Necros of Unicorn. Then, of course, we've got double Invocation for your fusion plays. For the ritual plays, we've got Machine Angel Ritual and Metaphys Drytron. So the Drytron Ritual spell, this card can be used to ritual summon any ritual monster from the hand or graveyard. You must also tribute machine monsters specifically from your hand or field whose total attack equals or exceeds the attack of the ritual monster you ritual summon. If this card is in your graveyard and target one Drytron monster you control, it loses exactly 1,000 attack until the end of the next turn, and you can only use the effect once per turn, and then you get to add the Drytron back to hand, or add the spell back. We've then got the one Machine Angel Ritual. Now, a lot of people will be like, what? Why? There's no need to. But the reason we've gone with 1 and 1 rather than 2 of this is this protects all light monsters, guys. I said it in my last profile, I'll say it again. So this card can be used to ritual summon any Cyber Angel Ritual, which is great because you can use Manju and one Drytron to get you a Natasha. So it gives you another option should you not want to bounce this back, and gives you an option to use levels rather than attack. However, the secondary effect is what makes it important. If a light monster or monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in the graveyard, you can banish this card instead. So imagine your opponent imperms your Vanity's Ruler and they go, right, okay, all I need to do is either run it over by battle or run it over by Cerberus, make Cerberus, use Cerberus effect, you banish this to keep it alive. If they've then exhausted their resources and can't get over the Vanity's Ruler, or you need to exhort more resources to deal with it, you could then be left with a Vanity's Ruler when they've tried to make plays to get rid of it. And then finally, at the moment, I've got 1 and 1. Now, Jack in the Hand is better for the Gamma effect because you can activate this without having any monsters on the field. The Where Art Thou is more direct because you get to add exactly what you need. So Jack in the Hand, you reveal 3 level 1 monsters. So you've got your Alpha, your Gamma, and your Zeta. Your opponent gets to add 1 to their hand, and you get to add 1 to your hand, and then the last one goes back into the deck. Where Art Thou is if you control a level 1 monster, you get to add a level 1 monster from your deck. During the end phase, you will burn for 2,000 life points unless you got to normal summon that monster, which you are not going to be doing in this deck. So again, very, very specific on exactly the route you want to go, which is why I've shown you 1 and 1, because you can either do 2, or you can do 1 and 1, or you can do 2 of this. It's entirely up to you. And then the final card that goes in my deck, purely because of the playstyle that I'm going for, and my kind of... I'm still trying to find space to put Gamma in here as well, but my kind of synopsis is this. Any smart virtual world player that has a decent combo will play Gossip Shadow to stop Nibiru. So straight away, Nibiru to me is a dead card. After that point, an Ash Blossom might not be enough, an Imperm might not be enough, and an Ogre might not be enough. Sometimes the single hand trap isn't enough to turn off the main meta decks, but they are enough to turn off the road decks. So the way I'm kind of doing with this, if I plan to go fully competitive, the last card that I'm going to put in here is Forbidden Droplet. Now, you can put in Dark Ruler No More if you want to, because you do have the ability to clear the board up and go from there. But the reason I've gone with Droplet is, again, remember this. Your ritual monsters and your Drytrons can come back from the graveyard. So as long as you leave yourself material to tribute in the hand, Droplet can send technically 4 more cards in your hand to negate and half 4 more monsters. Then all you need to be able to do with that Droplet after you've used that effect is get into your Drachnoids, because then your Drachnoids, if you special summon it correctly with 2 level 1 Drytrons, is then going to be able to go punch, 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 punch on all of your opponent's monsters that are halved and negated, and he is a 4,000 attack monster. So if he hasn't already killed them from that point on, he'll then be able to use his effect during the next turn, which is seriously going to disrupt your opponent. Which is why I kind of gone with the synopsis of, right, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to let my opponent do what they need to do, because there's no point in me losing a card out of my hand that may or may not stop their full Virtual World combo. And the issue with the Virtual World card is, as soon as they activate the field spell, not the field spell, the spell card that lets them activate the trap, they're already in a good position, because then from that point on, all they're going to do is use monster effects that technically only the right ones will be Ash, because they send from deck to the graveyard. So if you Ash the first one, they can still have a second and third to keep playing. Whereas I'd much rather they go, right, there you go, you got your VFD. Or even if they have the bad hand and they just make VFD or the synchro, I'd still better off opening up a Dark Ruler No, less so a Dark Ruler No More, but more so a Droplet, because then they'll go, okay, VFD effect, and you go, cool, chain Droplet, send whatever I need to, turn it off, and I'm good to go. So in my opinion, yes, Droplet is the more expensive card. If you haven't got Droplets, you can use Imperms, you can use Gammas, you can use Ashes, you can also use Dark Ruler No Mores. The idea behind this is to stop Zexal lock, less so, to stop the VFD lock, because that's where the pain's going to be. Now, the only downside of this particular build is that I'm focused on virtual worlds, and less so the decks that are going to be built to deal with virtual worlds themselves. So you're looking at more the road decks, you're looking at more the Eldritch decks, and that's something else to keep in mind as well. So that's it for the main deck. I know this is a bit of a long profile for the main deck, but I wanted to explain each and every card choice that I've made. Now, another engine that you can consider if you want to play it is the Union Carrier into Herald of Ultimateness, with, of course, your Eva, and then into either Cyber Angel, Petite Angel, or Herald of Orange Light, Herald of Green Light. Now, the way this works is you use 2 Drytron monsters, you make your Union Carrier, use Union Carrier to equip itself with Eva, which gives it 1,000 attack. Union Carrier then becomes a 2,000 attack machine monster, so it can be used as ritual fodder. You then use this as ritual fodder to get out your Herald of Ultimateness, and Eva going to the graveyard then banishes 2 fairy monsters. So by the time you've made this combo, you should have at least 1, if not 2 Ben 10s, or Ben 10 plus Manju. So then from that point, Eva would banish those 2 and gets to add 2 of these to the hand. Now, you'd only play 2 of these, so it's up to you which 2 you wanted to play. The reason I went with Petite Angel is because it's anytime it is summoned, it gets an effect to add. You're not going to be using these for their actual effects. You're only going to be using them to discard off of your Herald of Ultimateness. However, Orange Light can be quite useful to be used for its normal effect should it come up. Another thing, or the reason I don't actually main this right now is it requires you to technically play 3, if not 2 bricks, because you never really want to open up either. You don't want to open up the other 2 of these. The only one you'd be okay opening up is this one. But once you open this up, your other ones then become dead, which is a big issue. The OCG have Diviner, so Herald of Diviner or Diviner of Herald, and that makes that's a massive difference, because then, of course, what you can start adding is you can start adding your Herald of Orange Light, and then you can start adding your Diviner, and your Diviner becomes your normal summon for the turn to get your effects going. So that's where this engine will change or become more relevant once that happens. The final engine I'll show you just before we get onto the extra deck, of course, this is just because it's my favourite ritual monster, is Blue Eyes Chaos Max. If you want to be out and out aggressor, sorry guys, out and out aggressor, you can bring out your Blue Eyes Chaos Max. This is going to be your next level boss monster. It's 4,000, so it pretty much takes the spot of the Dracoids as well. But the idea behind this is if your opponent puts something in defense, you're just going to go Chaos Max, smash, game, done. Another kind of engine that you can play in your extra deck is Sprite Princess, which can be any rank 1. But the reason this is good, because it lets you excavate. If the excavation is a Drytron monster, that's fine, you can bring it back from the graveyard, use as effect. If it's a spell, you get to add it to your hand. So that spell could be a Nova, it could be the ritual spell, it could be preparation, it could be Jack in hand, it could be absolutely anything. And it is 1800, so as long as it attacks and survives the battle, that's when you then go into Zeus. And this just gives you another defensive option with a bit more interruption during your opponent's turn as well. You'll only be able to use it once because it will have Sylvian Princess plus 1 material, but it still gives you enough to disrupt your opponent. Now onto the extra deck, and I'm going to blitz through this one because a lot of it is pretty cookie cutter straightforward, but I'll explain it as we go. So for our level 1s or our link 1s, we've got the 1 Link Karibo, the 1 Relinquish Anima, and then of course you've got the Almirage into Secure Gardener. Now, this is of course your plays for the Invoked engine. I think this is still mad. I don't know why people are going, well, just cut Gardener and put in the Artemis, the Spellcaster. Well, the reason behind that is you're better off going into Almirage to give you a fire set up for your Purgatory aggression plays the next turn, and then go into a Gardener to give you that light monster, and sometimes Gardener's effect is actually very, very useful. So I would still keep these as they are if you're playing the Invoked engine. Relinquish Anima and Link Karibo, not only do they serve as dark monsters to be put in the graveyard for your Kaliga plays, but they also serve as, of course, Link fodder off of the back of one of your Drytrons. You only want to be using it if you need to use their effects or use them as graveyard dark fodder, but the idea is you're going to be linking this off just to kind of set everything up. And keep in mind, one of your options you do have is you can send, if you've got a Drytron in hand, for example, and you bring out use Nova to bring out let's say Alpha, which is the best one, you then turn Alpha into any of these, and because Alpha's in the graveyard, it can then use its grave effect to destroy or tribute the one in hand, bring out Alpha, Alpha gets you the ritual monster, and then you can use the one you've tributed in hand to get rid of the Alpha and bring that one back. So it gives you a lot of loot plays as well. Our link 2s, so a little spicy tech that I've put in here is the double-headed angler knuckle. Now the reason this is in here is it requires 2 machine monsters. Yes, it does change because the idea is that if you're using 2 Drytrons to go into this, of course you're going to be reducing your ritual fodder material from 4,000 to 1,500. But the one thing that this will do that the others can't do is this will allow you to discard any of your fairies, any other card in your entire hand that may be dead or unwanted, and bring it back. So it's a loopable 1,500 attack on a machine monster that can be used as ritual fodder. So very important on that one. A nice little tech that can bounce around. And something else that's very, very useful about this, and I'm just going to skip ahead quickly, is what does 25 plus 15 get you, ladies and gentlemen? That's right, 4,000 attack. Now, with the Drytron monster, you need to banish to equal exactly 4,000 or 2,000. So banishing both of these from the graveyard will do exactly that. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly always going to happen, but it's just a little added bonus that this can offer you as well. So it's just a tech that you can play around with. It's something that I'm going to be testing out to see how it works. But the idea of just being able to ditch any card I want to bring this back, to then give me that 1,500 material, then allows me to bring back my Drytrons using a ritual monster or another Drytron monster, and just adds more consistency to the overall play. Finishing off the rest of our link 2s, of course, we've got Nightmare Phoenix, IP Masquerena into Nightmare Unicorn. For our link 3, of course, we've got the one Phantom Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon. Now, the reason this is so good is it does spawn the ritual tokens. The tokens can only be used as fodder for the Machine Angel Ritual Summon because they don't have any attack. However, Auroradon is a machine. It is 2,100 attacks. You can use it for that. But it also gives you a defensive and offensive ability by popping its own tokens. It can pop a token, pop a card, which is really kind of good to just kind of start clearing board off of the back of your droplets. If you wanted to put in Cult Wing or anything like that, you could do. This will be one of the first cards. Once I've decided to put in like the Gamma Engine or found the space for that, or if you want to go for the Fairy Engine, this will be the first one that you take out. Then for our boss monsters, we've got the one Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, and the one Access Code. Now through Access Code, you'll put in loads of different attributes in the graveyard. I mean, straight away, you're putting a fire in there. This is just a boss monster, you don't have to play it, but it is another alternative. Any Link 4 will do, it will get the job done for you just as much. Even better if it just requires 2 monsters. And then of course your Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. You play a lot of high-level ritual monsters. Even if you were to try and get rid of your Vanity's Ruler, or of course one of your big Draconoids, because your opponent can't deal with a non-target, non-destructive card that can banish or boost its attack up, then this is another option for you. Again, it's not an option that you must have, and if you wanted to play Pot of Extravagance in the deck, which again is very doable, especially if you were to decide to go, right, okay, I'm going to take out the Invoked engine, I'm going to go with the Gamma engine, and I'm going to go with the Droplet engine, and I want to play Extravagance, you can then just max out your extra deck, and the only cards you really need in your extra deck will be your Anima, plus your Link Karibo, and then other cards from there. And then finishing off the fusions, of course, we've got your Invoked. I'm not even going to try that one. One Purgatrio, one Macabre, so defensive, offensive, offensive, and then a final defensive one of Kaliga. Now the reason this is so good is, imagine if you were to bring out your Draconoids, which is going to give you 2 target and send. That will be your one effect. But if your opponent was to normal summon a monster, so this is the old text, but the idea is if a player's monster's effect, sorry guys, if a player's monster's effect attempts to activate, none of that player's monsters can activate their effect for the rest of this turn. I mean, just reading it gives you a bit of headache. But the idea is basically your opponent can only activate one monster effect that turn and can only declare an attack with one monster that turn. Yes, he's only 1,800, but once they've activated their first effect, if you then use the Draconoids to get rid of whatever's like there, you're then protected with Kaliga. And then the next turn, you just get to attack with your Draconoids. And if they put more monsters on the board, your Draconoids will clear those monsters off the board and deal with everything else. So it does give you a lot of interruption. It's a nice little tech that Kurt was playing. I was like, yeah, I can kind of understand why it's useful. And again, the idea is that you want to back your board up with double negate. So if you were to able to, now I know you can't do it, or it'd be harder to do it, but if you were able to pretty much go Vanity's Ruler plus Kaliga, if your opponent wanted to activate a monster effect to try and get rid of Vanity's Ruler, that's it. That's all they've got. and they're still locked under Kaliga as well, and Vanity's Ruler's still going to punch in for 25. And then keep in mind, during your next turn, you would have already added the Alistair back if you've already summoned this. You normal summon the Alistair. Alistair can get you the invocation. You can then get rid of Kaliga plus Alistair, go into a Link 2 or whatever you want, and then be able to invocation into this guy. This guy can then banish Kaliga, go up to 3k. You've already got 7k on board. If you've got anything else in the graveyard, you're going to banish for this as well. It just gets stronger, and it's going to pretty much see the game out for you. So, incredibly powerful, does its job, gets you from A to B very, very simply and very, very easily. And that's it for the Invoked Drytron deck. I hope you like this. I hope it's given you a couple of ideas for your own personal build. And like I said, I tried to go through all the different techs and choices and options that you do have for the deck as well. And again, try and show you the alterations. Like, this isn't a one-trick pony. This isn't a one-trick stop shop. Drytrons can actually be very, very good and versatile. You just need to build it the way that you want to play it. And all it takes, guys, literally, they could bring out a level 12 ritual monster, right, tomorrow. That could be a walking, talking, solemn warning with no life point negation. As long as this attack is 2,000 or 4,000, this deck will spin it out quicker than you can say Invoked. Like, literally, you'll just spin it out, just Drytron done. Like, it's the game changer. And that's what I'm trying to get you guys to see, is that right now, the Drytrons are relatively cheap. So I would highly recommend picking up the Drytrons while you can, because they're certainly going to put in a lot of effort and a lot of work down the line, especially if you are a fan of ritual decks as well. Not to mention that if the Drytrons are not your kind of thing, you can still use it as an engine for any of your ritual decks as well. But for now, thank you so much to every single one of you for watching all the way to the end. Please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more Yu-Gi-Oh content. And it will also, if you get this to 50 likes, will unlock a test stand video to explain in depth and show you exactly what this deck can do. And trust me, it is pretty badass. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and happy dueling.